don't let anyone tell you you can't, right? That you can't, you're not strong enough, you're not good enough, whatever it is. And I hope that the sport, whatever sport they play, whatever that discipline is, helps empower and amplify that inner feeling of you are and you can and you will and you should.
Sports taught you how to compete, how to lead, how to push past limits when no one was watching. But what happens when the season ends, when the uniform comes off and the identity shifts? Welcome to the Beyond Her Game podcast. I'm Tori Barker, former Division I softball player and founder of Beyond Her Game. Athletes are trained to pursue excellence and lead under pressure, but no one prepares us for life when the game changes. This podcast is for female athletes building what comes next. We talk about business, brand, money, mindset, and identity beyond sports. The things no one teaches you in the locker room. Because the skills you built through sports don't disappear. They're just the beginning. Welcome to Beyond Her Game. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again on the podcast. I am super excited to introduce you to my guest, Coach Jose Sanchez. Welcome on the show.
Hey, Tori, thank you for having me. Thank you for the time and platform. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm excited to have you tell us. I want to jump right in and have you tell us about your personal background in sports and how that has led you to build the businesses and the opportunities that you're currently doing right now.
Yeah, well, thank you. So I think that the true origin of all this is that I'm a dad. So I'm a real dad, and I think anyone that has a daughter just knows that it's different. I love my boys. I have three kids. My boys are 14 and 5, but my daughter, she's been through a lot in her life. She's lived life, in a very special way, and she's the reason why I do what I do, especially for female athletes. So she went through a really hard time about 6 years ago, and part of her healing process was flag football. And for us, I coached my kids since they were tiny. My daughter played flag football when she was 6. It wasn't really cool for kids back or for girls back then, so she moved on to soccer and volleyball and cross country. But when we got on the field together, we've spent I don't even know how many hours. It's been hundreds and hundreds of hours the last 3 years together on turf or in a gym or wherever else but a patch of grass. And it brought us so close together in a very meaningful way, but it also helped give her the confidence and the inner strength and just a group of a band of sisters, right? The sisterhood that you get through this community is incredible. So as our chapter as a family closed in a positive way, it left me just thinking, what do I do now? Do I just kind of let this chapter close and go and the fight kind of just end? Or maybe there's some amazing young ladies out there and boys as well, but young ladies and girls flag football they could use positive visibility and mentorship and just fun, right? I think life is hard, so
Yeah.
even getting out in the field a little bit and learning and staying active would be great. So that's the origin of HERisUS, our foundation. And we focus on female empowerment through sports.
And I think that right there, that last part that you mentioned about, it's so much more than just the sport. That's really why you and I connected so much is, it's sports are amazing. Sports are life lessons learned, their camaraderie, their teammates, their community, but there's something more that you get from sports. And I think you totally understand that. You live and breathe it with the work that you do. And that's part of the reason I started my business. That's why you've started your businesses and the work that you do. And so, we definitely connected so much on that. And I loved the origin of the name too, like Her is Us. I heard you mention before where that origin of the name came from. So if you wanted to share that, I'd love for you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So her is really think of that young lady that in your life, whoever she is. When you think about it, lock that in, right? So that's her, and us as a community. So for me, her is my daughter Jacqueline. That when she is given the opportunities, the access, the visibility to go do whatever that amazing thing is, right? Whether it's athletics, it's flag football, whether it's journaling, drawing, just being still, whatever that is that she's doing, learning how to drive, which now she's 16, so that's a real thing. So I have to hopefully her can drive a car without crashing, be amazing. And then us as a community. So whether that's me as a dad, our family, the greater community, whether it's in Northern California or across the world, right? And I think the concept being that when we, the community, us, pours into that child, amazing things happen. And then the beautiful part, in my opinion, and we'll kind of test this out over the next several years, is that I think the community heals, right? So it's not
Yeah.
just that child, but when we see, our aunt, our niece, our daughter, our friend, our sister start to just blossom and thrive, it makes us, it gives me the strength to get up every day, no matter how exhausted I am, to go tackle that next thing, right? My notepad of 50,000 things that I have to work on today seems much more manageable because I know that her is in a safe place.
Yeah. Well, and it's amazing too if you think about it from the other perspective of, we're pouring into these young athletes for our communities and for them, individually, but the coaches and the volunteers in the community are also coming in to play to be in that role, right? Because that's such another element that is so important. If we don't have a lot of times volunteers at the youth athletic space, then we don't have those opportunities. So it's so key to have coaches like yourself and volunteers, parents and stuff like that who can step in to pour into these young athletes and help, really develop them beyond sports, beyond, the season that they're in, to make them, better people in the long run.
Absolutely. And I think the most common thing I hear with coaches that try out, they want to experience coaching female
Yeah.
athletes, in a new way is like, wow, this is fun. Wow, they're smart. Wow, like they really play hard. And it's that revelation, I think that, especially like in football, where tackle football, it's a tough sport and it's about aggression and leverage and, you're just going 1,000 miles an hour. But when you come and coach female athletes, especially in flag, it really is kind of like a wow, that eureka aha moment of these young women are not to be taken lightly. Like they are incredible athletes and they care. And then to your point, as you develop the trust in that connection with them, when things come up, they'll ask for advice, right? They'll solicit
Yeah.
feedback. I've had more female athletes, more teenagers ask for how can I get better? What do you
Mm.
see? What can I do? How can I improve? And not saying that boys don't do that, but it is remarkable how often these incredible young ladies are looking for that next piece of their skill set to get better, right?
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if that doesn't carry over to the classroom and in just their lives.
Yeah. And do you see, as you've developed a rapport as a coach with these athletes, do you see the athletes coming to the coaches for more than athletics? So we're talking about like that identity beyond sports, like, how do I become a leader outside of sports? Like, do you see that development skill, coming forward, or is that something more that, as they get older, or that the coach really has to instill in them, talking about their identity beyond sports, how they can take what they've learned and apply it in other places?
I do, and I think that it's something that is also organic. Right?
Mm,
I think with a culture that's set by a program or a team or a group, whatever it might be, an organization, that is embedded in what we do and how we do it. Right. So
yeah.
win or loss, whether it's we win big and we blow somebody out, it's we win with class and we're not going to disrespect our opponent. Right. Or if we lose a heartbreaking loss, which happens, it's happened a lot for us this season. We've lost a lot of games by less than a few points. But how do you what's that postmortem in that moment
Mm,
and understand, yes, this stinks and we wish we had won. However, what is it that we could have done, right? That self-reflection. A lot of that comes from the youth athlete, with them saying, hey, like we got to be at practice. Hey, we got to focus here. Hey, whatever it might be. And it's what I love is so often our leaders are the ones that are the most critical about themselves
mm.
when it's clear as day that they're pouring in everything they have, right? And that's just part of that perseverance that you build, that patina as a human as you get older.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I was coaching one of my son's games a couple weeks back, and they were the number one, team in their league for baseball, and they lost to like a 3 or 4 seed, and they just didn't show up. They weren't ready for the game. They weren't prepared, and they were crushed, right? Like, oh, how could we have lost to this team? And it was so. I loved it because the after game conversation is really where you get to pour into them a little bit more, just a little bit more, this doesn't define you. It's what you do from this moment that, makes the difference. And like all of these lessons that you can just instill in these kids. And granted, they're like 8, 9, and 10 years old. You hope they retain a little bit of it. But when you have multiple situations and conversations like that, when you just kind of sit down quietly as a team and you talk about like what's going to happen, what to expect, how to move forward, those are so dynamic. And just like you don't see that in everyday life, right? And that's part of like athletics that I just love so much is that you're not only, building life skills, but you're also learning lessons that you wouldn't have been able to learn had you not been in that situation. And having a great coach who sees that, understands that, and can instill that in you is like game changer. It's priceless. And so I think we need more of that in our youth. And as they get older, especially, these young female athletes, encouraging them to continue to persevere, to push forward, because, there's greatness on the other side of everything that they're doing, and they can contribute so much to this world just by, being who they are.
Absolutely. On that note, it's not forgetting that they're kids.
Yeah.
And this is no one's getting paid for any of this, right?
Yeah.
This is all community work, and it's to help them develop. And when we have, and for me personally, as a coach, there's a difference between losing because the team was just better and losing because you didn't try and you didn't show up that day, right? And that's happened both ways, right? We've
Yeah.
lost against amazing athletes, and you look at the commitments of high school athletes going to college, and we play a lot of these girls regularly, right, in
Yeah.
our region, and we know that when we play certain teams or certain programs, like it's going to be a tough day because, and we ramp ourselves up, we have ourselves up to want to change our scheme a little bit or make those adjustments, hoping that we're going to be closer, close that the delta. But regardless of any of that, they're kids.
Yeah.
And I hope that when it's over, right, the game's done, the tournament's done, whatever it is, that they go back to being kids, that they go back and record their next TikTok dance or come up with the next thing that they're going to say. But they are children. And like for me as a dad, it's a blessing and a curse. Like, I coached my daughter probably the hardest of any of our athletes because I know my daughter very well. I know what she can do and what she can't do. And I know for her what her limitations are and what she's working on.
Yeah.
So the car rides, I try not to make them about football, and it's hard because that's such a big part of our life together is flag football. But
Yeah.
it's just sometimes it's just having, I love our post game dinners. Like we go to dinner and it's just silly and it's fun,
Yeah.
and I don't have to be coaching, right? I can just be dad,
Yeah.
right? And I could be, a dad-like figure to the kids that we bring in to take it to and from tournaments. But
Yeah.
it's just I think it's so important that we remember no matter how competitive it is, how much we practice and train, they're kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I want to I want to touch a little bit on the difference because I know you coach youth and young age female athletes, so high school and younger, but you're also at the college level now a flag football coach too. So I'd love to see, or I'd love to hear your perspective of what differences do you see from those youth athletes to that collegiate level? What stands out the most for those athletes?
Physically, speed, strength, intellect, it's out of this world. We played our first set of games this past weekend with the USC Davis flag team, and it was incredible to just ramping up. We had six total practices before we competed, but how quickly they were absorbing information, how quickly we could install schemes. And there's one that comes to mind, our center, her name's Lou. I don't think she's ever played flag football ever or really in most sports, but she came out there and she wants to play and quickly said, okay, have you tried center? Great, fantastic. Never snapped the ball in her life, and within a couple of minutes, she had a pretty good grasp of it. And then we talked about, okay, here's a blocking scheme. When you do this, you do that thing next. And she's a tenacious blocker. So it's, part of it's that the university is phenomenal and everyone that goes there is incredibly intelligent. But the other part is that they are they're mature, they're women.
Mm,
So I
yeah.
try to be very careful with using the word girls because they're not girls, right? You're ladies, you're adults, and that requires an extra level of respect,
Yeah.
right? That it's whether it's kindergarten might be a little bit different, but for middle school and above, what I usually tell the athletes is that it's my responsibility to earn your respect and trust, and I expect to
Mm,
do that in the next couple of weeks,
yeah.
right? So it's a two-way street, but I think it's especially important for collegiate athletes, especially non-scholarship athletes,
Mm,
because if you're going to school and you're on scholarship, then yes, there's an agreement that you need to do X, Y, and Z to maintain this spot, plus be a great student.
yeah.
But for us, so we're a club sport. You have academics, you have a social life, you're probably working, and you're choosing to opt into this, right? So that on its own makes me feel grateful and humble that you are even willing to do this and to put in the
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what excites you most about the future of women in sports?
I think that and this makes me happy because again, I'm a girl dad, is that I think we're entering a window, and it's probably already open, where there's true equality around the bend. And I believe that whatever this flag football entity becomes that the NFL backs and launches will be the biggest female professional league in the world very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that's so exciting that especially the middle school girls out there that are learning, and even the younger ones, right? They're going to choose to play flag football as the primary sport. And I'd like to believe, I want to believe that this will help other sports as well, right? You
Yeah.
look at female wrestling is now becoming a huge sport in a lot of states.
Yeah.
Soccer still has always been softball. I just feel like now it's no longer a niche thing. It's not cute, right? It's like women deserve the same level of respect and also pay as men do, opportunities, right? NIL.
Mm,
There's so many brands that weren't involved in advertising or marketing for sports because there wasn't that person, right? You could have a 6'9", Greek god looking athlete, but maybe the right person, someone who's 5'4" and she's a female, but she's a great, whatever sport that is, wrestler, flag player, basketball. So I think we're entering this window, and I think it's amazing.
yeah. I I couldn't agree with you more because I think, as I've gotten older, I see more of professional female sports being adopted, right? Like we've got professional softball, obviously WNBA, and we've got soccer and stuff like that. But it's like thinking about the possibilities with flag football for women. I think I feel like it's going to be one of those sports that adapts really quickly. As the others have kind of evolved a little bit slower, like softball really specifically. WNBA is kind of like, the mecca there, but I think flag football is going to be one of those sports that once it goes to that level is going to just like spread like wildfire. So and to, I think the Olympics is a good starting point too for that exposure, and having that as a sport in the Olympics is going to be just that catalyst to kick off that growth and expansion there. So I agree, it's super exciting to sit back and watch and, hopefully, see some greatness coming out of those sports. Yeah. Well, I'd love for you to talk about an event that you have coming up. So tell us about this event, where it came from, what the concept behind it is, and what you're hoping to achieve with your Athlete First Weekend event.
Yeah, we're really excited. So Athlete First, kind of touching on the name. It's that again, as a father, everything that I try to do, I do it through the lens of a dad. If this was happening to my kids, how would I feel? If this was happening to my niece or nephew, how would I feel? Right? But those are the children that are closest in my life. And Athlete First is that. It's that we're putting the athletes first in whatever we're doing. And again, this is youth sports. This is not professional. No one's getting paid. And it's everything in youth sports tends to kind of revolve around extreme competition, monetization of whatever the opportunity is. And I think this is a way to reset that in some meaningful ways. So we put together a 3-day weekend that goes everything from a high skills ID camp showcase for female high school athletes to a really cool summit, symposium style presentation for athletes, boys and girls, to help them essentially learn about financial literacy, about mental health, about nutrition, about injury prevention and recovery, and then just an incredible panel of speakers, of professionals in their spaces, but also athletes, so male and female collegiate athletes that are out there doing it, they've gone through that track. and then a really amazing keynote speaker, Katie Hill. And the thought behind that is that when these young men and women go off to college and life gets hard, right? Whether you're playing sports or not, but it's going to get hard because now you're on your own. You're an adult, quote unquote, right? You're supposed to know everything. But when it gets difficult, hopefully that this summit will give them at least one more tool to
Mm,
help them get through that whatever that is, right? Whether it's emotional, if it's physical, insert life situation here that this might support that. Then
yeah,
Saturday on June 27th, we're going to have a free youth tournament. So ages 7 through 12 boys and girls are going to come out and represent their local either community organizations or NFL flag leagues and play for free. So I'm a huge advocate for travel flag football for girls specifically because I think that's where you really grow and learn. You're
yeah,
playing all-star teams every weekend. But I think that there's not a lot of teams that are the younger ages, and I think there's still some fears, which many are valid, that maybe it's too intense, maybe it's too expensive, maybe it's too much travel, whatever it might be. So our hope is to give 900 boys and girls a chance to play in a very positive athlete first focused tournament, and they'll go through the process and do pool play in the bracket, and we'll crown a champion. But it's gonna be a fun day of that community, really giving back. And then on Sunday 28th, we're really excited. It's gonna be the largest high school girls flag football tournament in Northern California. We're at about 50 teams, even some coming all the way from Mexico. So we have a couple
wow,
teams traveling crossing the border to be part of this. And then the final. So after we crown our 18U champion, we're gonna have a chance to play against an all-star team of collegiate flag players. So we have to get a benchmark live of, hey, yeah, I'm the best of the best here, but now I get to go see what that looks like.
yeah,
In general, it's an event that's also a fundraiser. So we're going to ask the community to pledge as little as 10 cents per impact play, so touchdowns, interceptions, and sacks.
so
Whenever
cool.
those happened, if I pledge 10 cents for a touchdown, that's going to generate, this incredible ripple effect of positivity. And just imagine being those young ladies on that field where you're not just playing for the score, but you are truly making an impact, right? When we raise money for local nonprofits that focus on youth athletics and academics, those kids are helping create change. They never meet the kids that are the recipients of their performance, but I hope this in the field will be special. I'm 40 years old, so I remember when I thought of this idea, it was Vince Young in the Rose Bowl, right? Scampering down the sideline to score in this crazy game. Brady Chastain in the Olympics. I think about Chris Davis in the Iron Bowl when he returned that field goal all the way back to the house. It's just those moments that make sports so special that you can't script.
Yeah.
And I'd be willing to bet that we'll have at least a couple of those in a few weeks.
Yeah. Well, and I love this what you've built here because it's like this is like full circle. Like the beginning of our conversation we're talking about, what made you start this Her Is Us organization, why you're so passionate about it, how the community is so integral in everything that you do and this and it's more than just sports, right? Like all of that stuff, this really encompasses all of that. And, it's amazing to have these opportunities for young athletes. I remember growing up going to camps and stuff like that, but nothing to this magnitude. And I think the opportunity there is so dynamic for these young athletes. And not only are they going to get a chance to play and, compete and all that stuff, but they're going to learn and they're going to remember those conversations. They're going to remember those presentations. Like you said, when life gets hard or something, a challenge comes up against them as they get a little bit older, they'll remember those moments. And so, I applaud you for the work that you're doing. It's amazing to have people like you in the community who are so invested in and care so much about these young athletes to put something like that together. So, I love that you're doing that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So one final question. So for the female athletes listening, what do you want them to remember when they walk away from this conversation?
That they're incredible, period. It's that simple don't, whenever I talk to a group of athletes, especially females, whether it's middle school, high school, whatever it might be, what my message to them is forever who needs to hear this in that moment, right? On that field, now it's virtual. Don't let anyone tell you you can't, right? That you can't, you're not strong enough, you're not good enough, whatever it is. And I hope that the sport, whatever sport they play, whatever that discipline is, helps empower and amplify that inner feeling of you are and you can and you will and you should. That there isn't that barrier that you can't cross because these female athletes, just females that are incredible. And again, we're entering this time in history where I think the world is realizing that and supporting that more importantly. I think supporting it is the biggest piece. So just recognize how strong you are, how smart you are. And when you finish your season or your game or even that series, you're doing great. And don't forget that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn about Her Is Us and what you do and more about the event coming up?
Yeah, so HERisUS.org, so HERISUS.org is our website, and that has all information for our events on Instagram. I could be found on Coach JH Sanchez, and then also HERisUS_foundation.
Awesome. Well, Jose, thank you so much for being a guest. Like I said, we have similar, passions, and so I love being able to have these conversations and share these stories with our listeners. So thank you for being a guest.
No, thank you, Tori. I appreciate it.